Welcome back, folks, to another archetype review. I'm Frizz, and today we're going to be talking about the Captivator archetype from the Grand Bazaar. Captivators are absolute masters of mind-affecting magic, and their talents can't be trained, but are rather innate parts of their mind. Think of them as weird mind sorcerers that get power from their brain rather than their blood. I said before that Captivators are absolute masters of mind-affecting spells, and I truly believe that statement. If you're looking to use enchantment or illusion magic to their fullest, this archetype is almost a must-take, especially if you already use occult magic. Let's just jump right into the feats, why don't we? The Captivator Dedication is nice and simple. To take it, you must either be trained in deception or diplomacy, and you need to have at least a 14 charisma. While 14 is the minimum, I really recommend that if you want to get a lot out of this archetype, that you try and get that as high as you can. The real mechanical part of this archetype is that you choose either deception or diplomacy, and then you increase your proficiency with it. So you can go from untrained to trained or trained to expert. Obviously, free skill increase, that's pretty dang good. But the real meat of the archetype is the spellcasting that it grants you. You're not only naturally captivating, but you can also affect people with minor magic. You get access to casting 2 different enchantment or illusion cantrips from the occult list, and you become trained in occult spell attack rolls and spell DCs. You use charisma for this, as it's your key spellcasting ability score, and that's really why you want to try and get as high of a charisma score as possible. Most of the spells will need a good spell DC, so really try and have a good charisma. While you do have a lot of options, it is still pretty limited due to only being able to pick the 2 schools, so I would in general recommend Daze, Ghost Sound, and Message, as those are cantrips that are going to be useful at some point no matter what, so there's nothing wrong with picking them. But you can really pick any cantrip that you want, so long as it belongs to either enchantment or illusion. Now, I'm going to talk about 3 different feats here, as there are 3 different feats in this archetype that give you access to more spells. And they're almost all necessary, and they are basically just extensions of the same type of feat, so let's talk about them all at once. At level 4, which is actually the same level as the Dedication confusingly enough, you get the basic Captivator Spellcasting feat. This gives you a first level spell that you can cast once per day, and it must be enchantment or illusion. At level 6 and 8, you get a level 2 and level 3 enchantment or illusion spell, respectively. At level 10, you can take the Expert Captivator Spellcasting feat, which increases your proficiency with occult spells to Expert, and gives you a 4th level spell. At 12th level and 14th level, you get a 5th and 6th level spell, and all of these spells must be enchantment or illusion, obviously. At level 16, you can take the Master Captivator Spellcasting feat, making you a master in occult spells. You get a 7th level spell in addition to the proficiency increase, and at level 18 and 20, you get an 8th and 9th level spell. Again, these are obviously enchantment and illusion spells only. Obviously, getting access to this many spells for just 3 feats is going to be very good, but there are so many spells that I can't exactly tell you which ones you should pick, so instead, here are just some general tips. Generally speaking, you get access to each level of spell a few levels earlier than normal for a full spellcaster, so any spells with the incapacitation trait are going to be substantially less useful. As much as picking Charm for your first level 1 spell really feels good, it's not going to work on all that many people in combat, and it's mostly just going to be useful for trying to charm commoners. So you don't get all that many spells, so try and make them work, and you want your level 1 spell to be good and useful even though it's still level 1. So just try and make sure that the spells that you pick are versatile. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Versatile spells, when you have such limited spells, are very important. At level 6, Captivating Intensity requires that you have basic Captivator spellcasting, and it honestly starts off as being pretty terrible, but it gets way better as you level up until it is honestly one of the best feats in the entire archetype. You can now cast your spells more often, allowing you to cast any innate occult spell granted by the archetype an additional time per day. The catch, though, is that you can only cast spells more often if they aren't your 2 highest level spells. At level 6, when this feat becomes available, If you have basic Captivator spellcasting, which of course you do as it's a prereq, you can only cast level 2 spells, meaning that when you take this, you don't get any extra spells per day. At level 20 though, you can cast a whole 7 more spells in every single day, which is a heck of a lot when you can only cast 9 per day normally. Countercharm is a really funny and egocentric feat where you get kind of possessive of the ability to charm others, and other people's charm and illusion magic just doesn't work as well around you. As a reaction, whenever a creature casts an enchantment or illusion spell, and you have a non-cantrip spell of the same school, you can interrupt their magic with a thought. You lose a spell of the same school, you choose exactly which level, and if someone casts an enchantment spell and you have 5 different enchantment spells of different levels, you pick which one you want to give up, and then you try and counteract their spell using the spell level of whichever slot you gave up. This is obviously good, since enchantment and illusion spells can be absolutely awful to be affected by, and stopping them at all is going to be incredible, but the limit here is that due to how counteract works, you're going to have to give up a high level spell slot to even have a chance of counteracting a high level spell, so keep that in mind. It's still pretty good though, especially if your GM says which spells enemies are going to be casting. If you hear a Phantasmal Killer, then you know about what level that's going to be, so you can pick your spell that you're going to be giving up accordingly. Heightened Captivation is a pretty nice feat that can solve some of the issues that I had earlier with incapacitation spells, but not completely. Once you take this feat, you choose a spell that you know, and you can now heighten it to the highest level spell slot you know, so long as it is a spell from this archetype. What makes this so good is that since you don't actually use spell slots, this means that you can use both your highest level spell per day and the spell that you chose with Heightened Captivation. This can go a long way to ensure that your favorite spell stays relevant throughout the course of a campaign, so it's really, really good, honestly. Also, you can take this feat multiple times and you get to pick a new spell from this archetype every single time. Reactive Charm is one of, if not the most interesting feat of this entire archetype. I don't say that lightly, this is an incredibly fun feat. You are so damn charming and distracting that you can cast spells at a moment's notice to throw someone off of their game. As a reaction, whenever you're the target of a spell or attack, you can cast a first level enchantment spell that normally takes 2 actions or less to cast. This takes effect before the triggering effect actually happens, and it might actually change their actions. As an example, if you cast Charm as a reaction and they critically fail on their save, then whoever was going to be attacking you might not want to hit you anymore because you're obviously such a good friend to them. The target must be within range of this spell, and you can only target that single creature with the spell even if it could normally affect more people. This feat is absolutely nuts in so many ways. First, this works with any first level enchantment spell that you have, not just occult spells granted by this archetype. If you're a spellcaster, you can use your normal spell slots here, which allows you to do this so many more times each day. Second, enchantment has some nasty first level spell slots that don't have the incapacitation trait, like Fear and Command. And due to this feat alone, I think that Fear or Command are worth learning as their only first level spell from this archetype. As a reaction, causing someone to be frightened before they attack you is obviously good. And Command is a bit more finicky though, since technically Command applies on their next turn, but you're presumably using this reaction in the middle of a turn, so ask your GM if they fail the save against Command, is it going to change their actions this turn or next turn? It will change which one is good, but regardless, having Command on hand is always going to be good, as Command is a shockingly good spell. Overall, seriously, who thought that casting a spell as a reaction against an enemy wouldn't be amazing? Effortless Captivation is another crazy feat that is good for basically everyone, but it is also absolutely insane for people who are already spellcasters. As a free action, whenever your turn begins, you can sustain a single enchantment or illusion spell. Again, that is any enchantment or illusion spell, so cantrips, focus spells, and spells from other sources and even other magical traditions count. Also, This stacks with the Effortless Concentration feat that most spellcasters can get, which allows for you to sustain 2 spells without spending a single action, so long as one of them is an enchantment or an illusion. This in particular is amazing for a witch, since witches have access to a bunch of different enchantment or illusion focus cantrips, and now you can sustain even more of them. Seriously, sustaining Evil Eye for free is amazingly good, and this works for so many different things. This is an absurd feat. Speaking honestly here, Look Again is a very, very weird metamagic feat, but it is an amazing way to ensure that a spell works. As a single action once per day, you can modify the next enchantment or illusion spell that you cast. If the spell fails to affect anyone at all, due to them, rolling well on their saves, then on your next turn, you must use the exact same number of actions to recast the spell, targeting basically whoever you can again. It's a full new recast of the spell, so you can pick targets differently if people have moved around or moved out of range, but even if there aren't targets, you still have to spend those actions. After the second casting, you lose the spell regardless of its effect. Look Again only works with spells that require targets, so you can't, cast Mirror Image twice. For someone who has as little spells as you do, this is amazing to ensure that your one horrible spell that actually has a chance of getting off its crazy effects once you get to high levels. And again, this works for normal spellcasters with their spells so long as they are enchantment or illusion. So yeah, your Heightened Phantasmal Killer, if they roll well on the save, works just fine. Honestly, if you couldn't tell already, I love this archetype so much, and I like that it leans into all different kinds of mind-affecting magic, not just the ones that make people like you. Enchantment and illusion aren't always about making themes seem nice and approachable. Sometimes they're about making people so scared that they have a heart attack. That's literally a spell. So I like that you can make someone captivatingly horrifying with this entire archetype, and honestly speaking here, this is my favorite spellcasting archetype since its abilities are really interesting, both mechanically and roleplay wise, and it's the only spellcasting archetype that I've read that then made me genuinely want to base a character around the archetype. Like, that didn't happen for the other types of spellcasting archetypes that I've read. Also, this is just a side note, but I feel like this dedication being a level 4 dedication has gotta be a typo. Like, it's exactly the same mechanically as a bunch of other level 2 dedications, so I don't know why it's level 4, and it really throws things off if it's level 4, because then that means that you can't take basic spellcasting at that level, which really just throws off all of your feats. So, personally, if you're not playing a Pathfinder Society, please ask your GM if you can take this at level 2, as it works much smoother that way. Thanks for watching. I've actually been thinking of making this video since Grand Bazaar came out months ago, but it literally slipped my mind for all that time since then. If that doesn't tell you a little bit about how well I remember things that aren't as directly related to Pathfinder, I don't know what else will. I hope that you guys enjoyed learning about the Captivator as much as I enjoyed reading it, because yeah, it's a very fun archetype, and I really encourage you guys to look into it, though do keep in mind that mind-affecting magic is very much in the morally gray area because controlling people's thoughts and free will is a bit fucked up. So just be careful about how you use a character that uses a lot of it. Have them just at least be aware of how messed up what they're doing can be. Regardless, if you have any thoughts or suggestions about the video, I would love to hear them down below in a comment. Until I see you next, live a wonderful life.